This thrilling story begins by showing two kingdoms. On one side was the Pe kingdom, and on the other side, the Yang kingdom. There were always wars between the two, as both wanted to establish their dominance. Both kingdoms knew that if they launched an attack swiftly and wiped out the other, the remaining power would be entirely in their hands. We are shown a commander named Geo from the Pe kingdom, who was managing his entire army. Meanwhile, a soldier named Keg was leading the Yang kingdom. They had fought many battles before. But the Pe kingdom had started to grow weaker. Many of their warriors were killed in the process. Eventually, both kingdoms took an oath not to attack each other for some time. But that didn't mean there wouldn't be another war in the future. They were definitely going to try and seize each other's power someday. Now, years later, we see a minister from the Pe kingdom having a discussion with his king, Lu Yang. The minister tells the king that their enemy has sent a proposal. In fact, a commander from the Yang kingdom has challenged for a one-on-one duel. The one who wins would gain control over Jing City. Jing City was located exactly between the two kingdoms. Both sides wanted control over it. When King Lu Yang hears this, he becomes very nervous. He doesn't want a fight to break out and lose his reign in the chaos. Lu Yang begins pleading with his minister to somehow summon Geo, their seasoned commander who had been running the kingdom's affairs effectively for years. Lu Yang was only a king in name, the real leadership resided in Geo. Now we are shown Lu Yang's house, where his wife, Geo, and her sister Qing were present. They were predicting when the war might happen. Geo rolled her dice and foretold that the war would begin very soon. It would be a moment marked by heavy rain and soldiers ready to kill each other. Shortly after, on Lu Yang's request, Geo arrives. Lu Yang explains everything to him, that the Yang kingdom wanted a duel before a full-scale war. A fight between their commander and Pe kingdom's commander. So Lu Yang wanted Geo to represent them and fight on their behalf, no matter what. But when the minister explains the possible consequences, Lu Yang gets even more scared. Instead of thinking logically, he starts saying that they should try to please the enemy kingdom and act as if they don't want war at all, promoting peace. Lu Yang even asks his wife and Geo to prepare a dance performance to entertain the enemies and calm the situation. But Geo couldn't stoop to such a low level. He warned the king that he would do whatever it takes to protect the kingdom, but he won't resort to such cheap tricks. Enraged, Lu Yang storms off, deeply upset with Geo. They were once very good friends, so they understood each other's emotions. After Geo leaves, Lu Yang discusses with his minister that they must stop the war at all costs. He didn't want widespread unrest, nor to lose control over his kingdom. Lu Yang had another plan. He would marry off his sister Qing to the prince of the Yang kingdom. This way, at least a relationship would be formed between the two kingdoms, and they wouldn't be attacked so brutally. Then, they could control the enemies in any way they liked. The minister liked this idea too and began working to move this proposal forward. Now we are shown Geo, who was entering a secret chamber, a deep cave where someone was already present. As she got closer, it was revealed that it was none other than the real Jiyu, who had been hiding here for years. This meant that the Jiyu who appeared before the king earlier wasn't the real one. His name was Jiang, and he was Jiyu's shadow. He acted on Jiyu's behalf and did everything as his proxy. The real Jiyu had become very weak over time. So, on his command, Jiang took over power and began controlling things once again. Jiang was one of those shadows who could do anything for their master. Jiyu also considered Jiang to be his best partner, because without Jiang, Jiyu had no real existence. But something was going on in Jiyu's mind. Maybe he was planning to take the kingdom into his own hands. We are now shown a flashback, the time when Jiyu was training Jiang thoroughly. Because if someone becomes another shadow, they must know everything about that person. From fighting skills to normal behavior, everything had to be identical. So Jiang had to learn all this from Jiyu, and that's why Jiyu had started training him a long time ago. In fact, there were times when Jiang didn't understand anything, but he had promised to protect Jiyu. He would become the best shadow the world had ever seen. Jiyu trained him and told him everything, how they would eventually defeat the Yang kingdom while taking control of the Pe kingdom. Once they seized power, Jiyu could be free. Then the real Jiyu could return to the empire and demand his rightful place. Right now, everyone believed Jiang was Jiyu. After so much training, the time had finally come for Jiang to officially join the army. But the real Jiyu knew the king wasn't that foolish. He would certainly want to verify whether Jiang was really Jiyu or not. The real Jiyu had a large scar on his body, something the king was already aware of. So, to avoid suspicion, Jiyu inflicted the same scar on Jiang's body, even applying herbs so it would heal quickly. Jiang had to endure a lot of pain during this process, but he was willing to do anything for Jiyu. We also learn that Jiyu once saved Jiang's parents' lives. Ever since then, Jiang felt he owed a debt to Jiyu and promised to protect him. Jiao knew this too, and she wanted Jiu to return to power because he was a kind man who thought about the welfare of the kingdom. So Jiao decided to help Jiang. Soon, Jiang left to meet Lu Yang and his entire army. Lu Yang was busy planning how to follow the principles of the Yang kingdom and eventually bring their rule under his control. But before that, a fight was scheduled between Jiu and Commander Kong. This duel would decide who was more powerful. Jiang, posing as Jiu, arrived at the site of the battle. The king of the PE kingdom was also present and observing Jiang very closely. According to Jiu's instructions, Jiang said to the king, "Whatever plan you make, I will accept it. In fact, I will fully support it." The king kept observing him carefully, perhaps some doubt was forming in his mind. So he immediately ordered his soldiers to remove Jiang's shirt, wanting to check for the scar. He remembered that the real Jiu had a scar on his body. And Jiang also had the same scar. But when the king looked closely, he realized the scar was fresh. Whereas Jiu's original scar had been from many years ago. But Jiang calmly replied, "That old scar had healed long ago, this is from the same wound. I hurt myself on purpose," Jiang said, "so that I'll always remember how the Yang kingdom attacked us and tried to steal our power. This pain awakens a feeling of revenge inside me and motivates me to work harder." The king began to understand Jiu's reasoning. He decided that the PE kingdom must attack the Yang kingdom, and that they must win the one-on-one duel as soon as possible. The king now officially accepted Jiu's shadow, into the army without any suspicion. This meant a huge battle was on the horizon. Jiang quickly returned to his chamber and began applying medicine on his wounds, which were hurting badly. The reason was, while the king was checking his scar, many hands had touched the wound, making it worse. Jiang was in pain, but the good news was that the king now fully trusted him. Meanwhile, Jiao informed Jiu that the king had accepted Jiang as the real commander, meaning he couldn't even tell that Jiang was just a shadow. But Jiu found it hard to believe. He was sure the king must have had some suspicion. That's why, without wasting time, Jiu began giving Jiang even more intense training. He believed that unless Jiang mastered every skill perfectly, he wouldn't be able to convince the king, or even survive against their enemies. Jiu possessed powerful samurai techniques, passed down from his father, and he wanted Jiang to learn them well. Jiang was giving it his best, but this time, he was fighting with an umbrella. He had no weapon or sword, which shocked Jiu. He couldn't understand whose fighting style Jiang was mimicking. It was definitely unusual. They sparred, but Jiang was obviously still too weak. Jiu defeated him easily and got a bit angry, telling him he needed to learn faster. They were running out of time. Meanwhile, we see PE Kingdom soldiers eating together when suddenly their minister arrives with a letter from the enemy kingdom. It was sent by the son of King Kong, the Prince Ping. In the letter, Ping wrote clearly, "Before this battle begins, Lu Yang must send his sister Qing to me. I will take her as my second wife and treat her well." After hearing this, the senior soldiers got furious. They felt deeply insulted by such a proposal. Some even wanted to immediately attack the Yang kingdom. But Qing calmed them down, telling them that she would now become a part of this plan too. She wanted to avenge the insult done to her by Ping. The dagger that Ping had sent with the message, Qing kept it with her as a symbol of the revenge she planned to take. Now, we are shown King Kong of the Yang kingdom, who was currently training his son Ping in advanced combat skills. He knew very well that the people they were about to fight were no weaklings, so if Ping ever faced them, he had to be fully prepared. Poor Ping, however, believed himself to be the most powerful, as his father had taught him everything from a young age. He had never faced anyone stronger than himself. He had always been surrounded by over 1,000 elite guards for protection. That means Ping had no real exposure to the dangers of actual battles or real-world experience. But King Kong explained to his son Ping clearly, "Even if you think the enemy is weak, remember that the warrior named Jiu is extremely powerful. I once fought against him years ago. Many soldiers attacked him at once, yet he survived alone. He fought all of them single-handedly and is possibly still alive today. Our main mission," Kong said, "will be to attack the enemy soldiers and eliminate Jiu at all costs." Ping promised his father that no matter what, he would kill Jiu. He had already begun learning many new skills, which would obviously help him in the war. Seeing this confidence in his son made Kong very happy. Kong also promised Ping that he would bring Qing before him, and he could take her as his second wife. Both father and son were thrilled and began preparing to attack the other kingdom. Meanwhile, Jiu was still training Jiang, but he wasn't quite sure how to teach him the next steps. The most important thing in battle, he explained, was first learning to protect oneself, and only then launching an attack. Yao was also present. She had begun to realize how Jiang needed to be trained. First, she told him about their enemy, Kang's powers, that Kong could fight in any kind of situation. Even in complete darkness, he could detect the enemy by sound and strike with deadly precision. Now, Yao challenged Jiang to attack her. When Jiang attacked, Yao dodged his blows effortlessly, using an umbrella. The very umbrella Jiang had been training with as a weapon, Yao turned it into a tool of defense. To demonstrate even more effectively, Yao then asked Jiyu to attack her. Jiyu showed no mercy and launched aggressive strikes, but Yao defended herself with such skill that even Jiyu's attacks failed. Jiyu was stunned by her skills and realized that Jiang needed to learn these defensive techniques. He requested Yao to teach Jiang as quickly as possible so that he could survive the coming battle. If Jiang dies in that war, Jiyu said, then all of this, all of my plans, are pointless. I am already dead in the eyes of the world. It's only because of Jiang, my shadow, that my presence still exists. Now, Jiang began intense training with Yao, learning high-level defensive skills and combat techniques. It looked like Jiang was on his way to becoming the greatest samurai, the best shadow warrior, the one who would eventually bring freedom to his kingdom. On Jiyu's suggestion, Jiang went to meet a warrior named Tian. Jiyu wanted his shadow to learn multiple arts from Tian, believing that mastering a variety of skills would make it easier to defeat their enemies. Years ago, Tian had worked with Jiyu, and they had made a pact. When Jiyu gained power, Tian would become his commander. But things hadn't gone as planned. Jiyu had gotten seriously injured. Now, Jiang told Tian everything, how Jiyu was still alive, and that he was only Jiyu's shadow, doing everything in his absence, exactly the way Jiyu would. This kept the myth alive, the fear that PE Kingdom's most dangerous warrior might still be alive. Jiang explained things so clearly and sincerely that Tian agreed to help. He began training Jiang with full dedication and also started teaching the people of the kingdom how to fight. Tian showed no mercy during training. He taught Jiang both defensive and offensive combat techniques. Now, Jiang had the skills of Jiyu, Yao, and Tian. He had become multi-talented. All that remained was for him to sharpen and refine his skills even more, which, of course, would come with practice. After completing all the training, the next day was the big day. Jiang would finally go to the Yang Kingdom to fight. On the night before the battle, Jiyu, Jiang, and Yao trained together. The three of them were having fun, enjoying their final peaceful moments before the storm. Now, when it was time to sleep, for some reason, Yao started talking to Jiang. Jiang explained to her that they were all soldiers. No matter what happens, he would never abandon Jiyu. But the real problem was that Jiang didn't have any family of his own. If he died in tomorrow's battle, there would be no one to mourn him. Hearing this, Yao became a bit emotional. She said, "Even if you have no one, I care about you." That was the moment Jiang realized that Yao had feelings for him. She hadn't said anything before, but now they both understood what they meant to each other. However, Jiang also knew that Yao was the wife of his king, Jiyu. And in that sense, he could never betray him. So Jiang thanked Yao politely and went back to his room. But for some reason, Yao followed him quietly. She slowly entered his room, and now they couldn't control themselves anymore. They had grown extremely close, and they spent the night together. But the most shocking part was that Jiyu saw everything with his own eyes. He had feelings for Yao too, but he had never expected that his own shadow would take away the one he loved. This betrayal filled Jiyu with rage. The next day, we see Jiang standing on a hill, while on the other side, the entire army of the Yang Kingdom was gathered. Kong and his son Ping were also there. The moment they saw Jiang, they were shocked. Kong began to wonder. How could Jiyu be this confident? He was so badly injured before. They were now completely convinced that Jiang was actually Jiyu. Based on this belief, they planned their entire strategy to take him down. Meanwhile, Tian and his army were ready to sneak into the Yang Kingdom using a secret route to launch an attack. But the biggest concern was, would the water route be dangerous? Among them was also Qing, who wanted revenge against Ping for humiliating her. Without waiting, she grabbed a dagger and jumped into the water, heading toward the kingdom. She couldn't be left alone, so Tian and his men followed her. Slowly, they managed to infiltrate the Yang Kingdom. Now it was time to execute their plan, to eliminate the enemy soldiers. On the other side, Jiang was fighting Kong and many of his warriors. Thanks to his incredible training, Jiang was able to win several rounds. However, he also got seriously injured in the process. Kong began to realize that Jiang was much stronger than expected, so he suggested that they end the match in a draw. But Jiang was not ready to give up. He trusted his training and believed that no matter how powerful the enemy, he could win. So Jiang kept fighting Kong. Meanwhile, Tian and his soldiers clashed with the army of the Yang Kingdom. Even though the Yang soldiers had superior weapons, Tian used the umbrella technique, now modified with multiple hidden weapons. This was their master plan from the beginning. Before the Yang soldiers could even understand what was happening, they were already being taken down. It looked like Tian's side was winning. Now, Qing finally reached Ping and attacked him to take her revenge. But Ping used his combat skills and severely injured her. Poor Qing was left lying helpless on the ground. When Ping came near Qing and started insulting her with harsh words, Qing suddenly pulled out the same dagger that Ping had once sent her, and slashed his throat. Poor Ping was killed in his prime youth. When Ping's father Kong found out, he went completely mad with rage. He couldn't bear the fact that his son had been killed in such a way. Kong took out all his anger on Jiang, throwing multiple punches at him. Jiang, already weakened from battle, looked like he wouldn't survive. But Jiang used a powerful defense technique that he had learned from Jiyu. Using that, he dodged Kang's attacks and stabbed him in the stomach with a sword. This means Jiang skillfully killed the king of the Yang kingdom. In a way, he had won the entire war. But there was still no official confirmation of this victory. After completing his mission, Jiang returned to his family for the first time in years. He hadn't seen his mother in all this time because of his secret mission. But when he entered his home, he discovered that his mother had been stabbed to death. Suddenly, a group of assassins arrived and started attacking Jiang. Jiang, who was already badly injured from the war, still fought back fiercely. But eventually, the soldiers stopped attacking and said, "The king has summoned you." The shocking part was, they were calling him by his real name, Zane. This meant the king had somehow found out that he was Jiyu's shadow. Without saying a word, Jiang went with them. We are then shown several soldiers heading toward Jiyu's hideout. Obviously, they had now learned the truth and were determined not to spare Jiyu's life. Jiyu, already very weak, tried to fight back, but it was clear he wouldn't last long. Now we cut to the grand palace of the kingdom, where everyone was celebrating the victory. Suddenly, Jiang enters. The moment the king sees him, he orders everyone else to leave. The king makes Jiang sit near Jiyu, and from his expression, it seemed he now knew the truth about Jiang and Jiyu's connection. The king then stood before everyone and declared, "I now know who the traitor is." He then killed one of his ministers, who had been leaking information to enemy kingdoms. The king praised Jiang, saying, "You've helped our kingdom immensely." As a reward, the king granted Jiang permission to be with his wife, Cao. In fact, he even gave permission for them to get married. But then he said something shocking. For this to happen, Jiyu must die. He brought out a box, claiming his assassins had already beheaded Jiyu. But when the box was opened, it was empty. Suddenly, from behind, an assassin appeared and killed the king with a sword. That assassin was none other than Jiyu himself. He had secretly executed his final plan to perfection. Now, Jiyu ordered Jiang, "Finish the king completely. He is our biggest obstacle." But Jiang began to sense that Jiyu was now trying to kill him too. As Jiyu came closer to attack, Jiang countered swiftly, stabbing him repeatedly, and finally killed him. Jiang not only killed Jiyu, but he also made it appear that Jiyu had assassinated the king. When Jiang walked out of the palace holding the sword, all the soldiers were gathered outside. He calmly explained that an assassin had killed the king. The soldiers understood, and no one raised any objection. Which meant, the kingdom was finally free. And that brings us to the end of our story.